My name is Eimear Walshe and I'm based between my home village in Longford and the amazing facilities here in Eimear Gallery and Studios. A lot of my work has to do with Irish history, but I approached that subject specifically with a focus on gender and sexuality. I make video, sculpture, publications, writing, performances, and I also sometimes do a bit of education work, which I find really inspiring. Oftentimes, the work that I do is set in rural contexts, whether that's fictional or non-fictional. I think a lot of the time what I'm trying to do is marry together different histories that appear to be in contradiction with one another. Art's first role in my early life was that it was a means for keeping me kind of busy and quiet as a young child. My older sister Sarah would have introduced me to the idea that drawing was a kind of fun way of spending time. And then actually when my sister moved away to Galway when she was finished school, we would send each other letters, but we would draw and illustrate these letters, and my sister also kind of started doing like collages, bits of cut-out stuff from magazines, and she'd do funny captions on them and jokes and stuff. So at that point, I think art's role in my life changed towards like a mode of communication, really. And then later in life, when I was a teenager, I think that my encounters with art as a teenager was maybe also encountering more bits of art history that I was really interested in and figuring out what parts of art history resonated with me or were relevant to me. And then the reason I was kind of pursuing doing art then was more to do with like exploration and trying to figure out who I am and who I am in relation to all of this stuff that came before. And I think those three functions of art as a way of kind of going inwards and having quiet time, as a means of communication, and also as a way of just trying to work things out, they really stuck around for me, and they're still actually part of what motivates me today.
Say, for example, you were to divide all the land in the island of Ireland equally among all the people who live on the island of Ireland. That would amount to about 1 hectare each, or 2.5.
Maybe when I was younger I did have a slightly romanticised notion of what it means to be an artist, but I think that I maybe kind of got a reality check from my parents, who would have been like, you know, you're not going to have a lot of money, it's not a very high income job, it's pretty unreliable kind of work, and you'll probably have to do other things to subsidise it. And I think if you go into it aware of that, then those things are maybe less hard. But yeah, it is a very unusual occupation, and it's not a one that a lot of people get to pursue. And that's why I kind of do think that if you're interested in art, that no matter whether you choose to pursue it as a career, that whatever you're doing as your job, you make sure that there's some space for it in your life in some capacity. Whether that's what you do in the evenings or the weekends, that's just as valuable, and you don't have to go like full-time into it for it to be really enriching, both to you and to people around you. I think there's two answers to the question of how did I decide to become an artist, or when did I decide to become an artist. The first is that maybe I kind of decided as a child that I wanted to be, and then figuring out the route towards it was obviously a pretty complicated affair. But when I was 17, I was finished school, I went to Dublin, I went to art school, and then continued to pursue it after that. But maybe the more true answer to that question is that I kind of have to continue to decide to be an artist like all the time, and maybe sometimes even tell myself I haven't quite decided to be an artist for sure. Certain projects require me to go, for example, if I'm making a publication, I might tell myself that I'm not an artist in order to be able to make the publication and not get kind of writer's block or stuck. I might tell myself, actually, I'm a nun from the 1950s and I'm writing a school book for children, and then I'm really inspired. Whereas if I'm saying, well, I'm an artist and I'm making a book and I'm an artist, then I'm like, it might not be so easy. Or if I'm making a piece of video work, if I'm setting out and I'm saying, okay, I'm an artist and I'm going to make a piece of video art, I'll probably not be able to do it. Whereas if I tell myself, I'm making an ad, I'm making a YouTube video, I'm making an infomercial or something, then I find it easier to pursue. So I suppose the categorization of these things as art isn't even really my job. That's somebody else's job. It's somebody who's qualified to tell me if it is or isn't art. And the other thing maybe that's worth saying about that is that there's quite few people in Ireland who would be making the majority of their income from art, but there's still a lot of people who are making art in Ireland who don't necessarily make all of their money from it. And that deciding to be an artist or deciding to make art is something that you shouldn't be inhibited to not make art if you're not like identifying as an artist at that time. Like going out and making some mad video with your friends, or like sitting down to do some drawing some evening, you shouldn't have to, that shouldn't hang on whether or not you are an artist. I have at least 3 favourite parts of making art, or the process of making work. The first is actually just getting to spend time alone with an idea, whether it's researching or whether it's producing or writing or even shooting film. You get to really spend time concentrating and thinking about one thing, and I think it gives you access to a kind of mental state that you don't get very often in other parts of your life. And I think that kind of also maybe puts me into almost like a state that I experienced as a child, like the function of keeping yourself quiet. The other thing that I really, really enjoy about making work is making work with my friends. A lot of the work that I make is collaborative, and the process of presenting ideas that aren't fully formed, that aren't quite there yet, but you think might be a good idea to a friend, and for them to be like, yeah, and I'm going to do this on top of it, or I'm going to do this beside it, or I'm going to soundtrack it this way. That process is so fun, and it's kind of like a first tester audience as well, and a space where ideas, well, there's like a lot of scope for it where ideas can go. And then the third part about making art and presenting it in the world is getting, and this is rarer since the process of lockdown, but getting to hear from and see other people encounter your work and see how they understand it, maybe different from you or maybe the same, or maybe there's something that resonates with them that you hadn't thought of before. But in particular, I'm just thinking about a sculpture that was from last year, and watching a really young child of maybe 3 or 4 interact with the sculpture and like run up the sculpture. You could run on it, you like jump up and down on it and like stamp their foot on it and run all around it. They understood it in a way that maybe like an art historian wouldn't, maybe somebody who's qualified to speak about it. The way it was just like completely in their body, and yeah, they really got it. And I think there's something just incredibly satisfying going from just quietly in your room doing a little drawing of something that you think you might make to seeing it really resonate with another person of whatever age. At the moment, I'm working on a performed reading of a text that I wrote during the lockdown. So I'm really excited to perform that live in front of an audience for the first time. I'm also working on a new video work for the end of the month, editing that together now, which is really fun. And then after that, I'm going to make another new publication. So there's a lot of variety in terms of the kinds of work that I'm getting to do at the minute, which is great. The things that I'm really excited about for the coming year is actually exactly that, getting to encounter the work of my friends that I have been looking at on the internet and that I have been listening to in earphones for the last 2 years. Seeing it live is so special, and even kind of seeing people's work in progress, being able to share that safely with each other again is just so exciting, because there's something that you lose obviously when it's behind the screen. So that's the thing I'm looking forward to the most this coming year.